A Marvel movie, I don't think will ever be Oscar worthy in that sense.
Yeah,
Because
probably right.
they're popcorn.
To be fair, I don't really respect Oscar nomination in general now.
Da, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Book to film adaptations.
Welcome.
No, we're getting right into it. Screw the welcomes.
Okay, no
I want to
intro.
talk. I'm excited. So,
All right.
actually, not just book to film adaptations. We're talking just adaptations in a broad subject matter.
Yeah, just adaptations in general. So whether that's to, book to movie to TV show.
Yeah.
What it is not an original work. It is an adaptation of something else.
Yeah. And so I was looking into specifically book to film adaptations for this stat because I thought it would be a good way to start off the convo. In that, of all movies that have been released,
You're in such a rush, you have to shorten the word conversation to convo.
I just got to spit off stuff, all right? Here's some stats for you.
I couldn't take that seriously.
I'm going to start talking in like abbreviations, so
God.
get used to it.
You were too used to TikTok where time is limited and you have to shorten everything, even your sentences.
All right, so to start off the conversation, I was thinking about the complex intricacies of what I could say.
Yeah,
better?
good.
Better?
Yeah,
Okay.
That's better. I appreciate it more.
No problem.
It sounds a bit more pretentious, and that's more my speed.
Okay, so book to film adaptations. This point took forever to get to.
I do my job well.
So of things that are of books that are adapted into films, ones that have a book as source material get 53% more in revenue than ones that are original screenplays. Does that surprise you?
No.
Not one bit. Why doesn't that surprise you?
I mean, it already has an audience. It's proof of concept. Like, if the book itself did well, that means, at least the story is actually telling, and it's not going to flop as a story. It just depends on how you implement it.
Yeah, exactly.
And worst come to worst, you have an audience that will watch the film, guaranteed, because they like the book.
And even if it's a bad film, typically you'll go out and watch the movie just to see for yourself.
Yeah.
I couldn't help it. There's some terrible adaptations out there that I've still gone and seen because I was interested in. But 70% of the world's top 20 grossing films are based on books. So time and time again, you could think there's so many out there.
I mean, hell, The Godfather.
Yeah. Is that based on books?
Yeah. Based on a book.
Oh, wow.
So
that's
some
surprising.
of the biggest movies ever. Like, I actually didn't know this before kind of looking them up. Forrest Gump, based on a book.
Didn't know that.
Though we'll get into it later, but loosely.
Very loosely?
It actually is goes a little different direction than the book actually does.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I mean, filmmakers, directors, they love getting to source material because it's already written and it has an audience, does better in the box office. And I didn't know this, but the most reused and repeated book to film adaptation ever. This movie has been done 7 to 8 times.
Robin Hood?
Not Robin Hood,
Dang.
Surprisingly. Little Woman. Have you even heard of it?
Little Women?
Little Woman. Yeah. No, woman with just A-N.
Oh.
And so the most recent movie just came out in like 2019 with Meryl Streep. The first movie came out in 1917 in World War I.
Oh.
And it's based on a book from 1868.
Yeah.
So that's been done 7 to 8 times. There's been other book to movie adaptations that have been done like 3, 4 times, maybe even 5. But that's number 1 up there. So this is something that people love seeing their books on screen, and it's a good combo to start off on. So what'd you end up finding when looking into this?
I'll be honest, most of my research is never like internet stuff. It's just me trying to think about stuff, and then eventually go to the internet to find examples for what I'm thinking and to remember names and stuff, which I'm terrible at. But my main thought about this is, I kind of had myself a question thinking about the Rings of Power from Amazon. Like, why does source material matter in an adaptation? And the subsequent question of when does it not matter? And so what are the benefits for the movie producers? What's the benefits for the fans on both sides of the aisle? Because I don't think it is binary where, hey, it's not adhering to the source material perfectly, it must mean it's bad. No, it's not true. Like, there's plenty of good reasons to stray away. However, there's a lot of reasons to stay close to the source material. So that's kind of my thought. So on a film producer side, what do you think is the benefit of actually staying close to the source material?
The source material worked. If it's a successful franchise or if it's a successful book series, there's a reason it is. Yeah. So I think you should always stray toward the side of keeping it as accurate as physically possible to a book. But the hardest thing to keep accurate is a lot of books are internal dialogue and thoughts inside the character's head, which is extremely hard to show on an adaptation. So if you can pull off as close as possible to the book, I think that's where you'll find the most success.
Yeah, I actually thought about the audience. The audience actually is a huge asset for film producers, because if it actually does stay really close to the source material, typically most fans will be really supportive of it. They will advertise it for you freely.
Oh yeah,
and it's one of the best word of mouth campaigns. Is fans of the original source will tell their friends who have never watched it, and they want to talk about it with other people.
Right.
It kind of gives the fan side of things, the fan of whatever original source. The benefit for them is whatever the source was. The new medium or a new version can bring new life and new excitement to something old.
Yep.
And also it can give people that you can actually talk with other people about it. So for example, I love Wheel of Time, but
do you?
Yeah, I know.
You like Wheel of Time?
But Whoa. Barely anybody has time to read like 14 books plus a prequel book, and I can't talk about it with anybody. However, the new show gives me the opportunity it's way easier to say, hey, buddy, watch this show.
Yep.
You watch a couple episodes of the show, see if you like it, and I can talk about my favorite franchise with them. Like that's the real great thing. It brings more people to the table, and I can talk about something I really love.
That's a good point.
That's a wonderful thing. That's why I was mainly excited for the TV show. Is I know I have many friends who won't read the books, but they can watch TV, and so I can talk with them about my favorite thing.
Got it.
The disappointment is when they see the show and go, "Oh, I didn't really like it that much," or "It was kind of boring," and it gives a poor interpretation, and it reflects poorly on the source material because they haven't read it and they don't know, and so it turns people off to the original source material potentially.
Yeah, I think you were super excited when Wheel of Time came out. And would you say the source material strayed too far away from the book? Why didn't it come out like Robert Jordan intended in the first book?
Well, they made so many changes to the point of I don't think there was any scene that was like actually taken from the book.
Ooh.
Like they began and ended in roughly the same place, but everything in between was very different. Like,
okay.
And I don't buy the fact of, they didn't have enough time, they had to condense things. Maybe, but they added whole episodes. I think there's at least 2 episodes worth of added material.
Jeez.
That's completely original, where it wasn't inspired. Like, there's plenty of scenes that like are inspired by stuff in the book, or merging of 2 scenes into one, and like, I get where they kind of got that.
Yeah.
But if they cut out the stuff that was brand new, they would have had time to do things. So, but I think that's the benefit for it, and
also money.
For the producers, it's if you do it well.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. When is it not okay when is it okay to not follow it?
To not adapt your book?
No, not follow closely to the source material.
Okay.
Because there's genuine reasons for that, actually. Like, kind of my thought on it is when the source material directly conflicts with the medium that you're trying to use, significant changes have to be made.
Okay.
Now, either that you have to really deviate from the source material or not do that adaptation in the first place.
How do you do that? Do you have an example of something that didn't stay very true to the book that was super successful?
Princess Bride.
That's a great example, actually.
Princess Bride is very, like the movie, great.
Yeah.
I think I read the book a long, long time ago. But so from the movie side of thing, it's grandpa telling his grandson a story.
Uh-huh.
Nowhere. That's not the Princess Bride.
And Princess Bride is a fantastic movie. I love it. Yeah.
But the book, the movie cuts out a bunch of stuff, like most of the book. Like it's almost like a highlight reel of the book. And then the medium it's told is a grandpa telling a story. That's not the same way in the book.
Okay.
So, and hey, that worked out. It worked out really well. They're trying to play to the medium that it is. But as long as you get the heart of it, people are fine with it.
That's a great example, because that is a very successful adaptation that I guess doesn't stay very true to the source material.
Forrest Gump, in addition, the book is far darker. Far darker.
Doesn't he go to the moon in the book? I did read that. Gump goes to the moon.
But the story takes a more darker approach, far more introspective, and the movie doesn't do that. It has a far more hopeful tone, but
okay,
that's a deviation from honestly a lot of the heart of the book. But they did it well.
Based on what you just said, a theory is convulsing in me. If it is a one-off book, meaning Forrest Gump is a solo book, or Princess Bride there's one book and it gets adapted, maybe you can stay a little bit less true and make that work in a movie. However, when you have a series like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Wheel of Time, that has a beginning and end that's plotted out and fine-tuned to where these things have to happen for it to make sense later, maybe you have to stay a lot more true to the book, to the source material for it to work. Compared to Princess Bride, it's more of a fun, you have this fairy tale. Forrest Gump goes on these random adventures, and you could still get to the end by cutting out a lot of scenes and adapting it in different ways. What do you think about that?
I think it's much harder to get to your end goal it's the same thing of the angle. So if you're trying to hit if you're aiming in whatever, like a bow and arrow, or take your pick, but a slight
slingshot.
Sure.
Okay.
You take a slight degree change at the source.
Yeah.
That may be just a fraction of degree. At 10 feet, not a big difference. At 2 miles, you're wildly different places. So a minor change at the beginning, you can see its effect far more.
Yeah.
The longer it goes.
So you gotta. I think with Wheel of Time, when they do the show, you have to stay very true to the source material. Sure, you can stray. It can't be word for word.
Yeah, no, I don't. Like most people, I would imagine, don't want that.
That's why Lord of the Rings works in a movie. It does not stay. It's not 100% accurate to the book.
Well, the difference here is, I think Lord of the Rings proved that if you're going to change things, the change should mostly be cutting.
Yes.
Like cuts and maybe combinations. You shouldn't really be adding. If you find that you're adding too much,
right,
that's when you're straying off the path.
Yep.
Because, and there are examples you can add, I guess, but needs to be rare.
It's tough because you're going to anger the fans of the books as well.
Or you can go like Batman animated series made brand new characters and everyone loves it. But that is more of a continuation. I don't know if that's really an adaptation. Comic books are kind of different. But
yeah. Well, let's say if you were an author and you had a successful book series. So we're talking fairy tale, right? I mean, for either of us, we're talking, it's not happening. But let's say you're an author of a successful series and you get approached by a producer that wants your book to become a TV show and another producer wants yours to become a film. And there's going to be different numbers. Who knows which one you'll make more money on, but what would you want as an author of your treasured series? Would you want it going on TV or would you want it going on film?
Depends how long my book is.
Let's say it's a trilogy.
Oh, then television.
TV?
Yeah.
Why that quickly?
I mean, it's time. It's time frame. Like, an 8-episode television could just be an 8-hour movie broken into hour segments.
Yeah.
Where a movie, you're stuck at about 3 hours at maximum.
Okay.
Like, if you get it.
Maybe so you'd want everything, you'd want your baby, your treasure to be all the scenes possible adapted as true to your source material, and you think you can get that out of a show.
I think it'd be better.
Yeah.
Hell, I mean, maybe even like mini. Like, let's say if I have a shorter book, you can do a mini TV series.
Okay.
And you have the amount of episodes that it takes to do the story correctly. And then that's it. Maybe it's 7, maybe it's 12.
Okay.
Who knows? But just give it the time it needs. But that's a pipe dream. Like,
right.
There's, of course, producers and, how much money they're willing to put down on it. So I would prefer television, I think.
What if I told you that the producer of this show is the CW?
Yeah, no. That'll be a hard pass.
What if it's... are you okay with Netflix? You wouldn't want your show on Netflix? Okay, how about Amazon Prime?
Definitely not. No.
How about
hard pass?
HBO.
I'll take HBO.
Okay, so HBO is your only acceptable
HBO.
Streaming. They do it right. As long as they have source material, like Game of Thrones, they're solid. Seasons 1 through 6, they got books. Great. D&D are doing a great job. As soon as it goes no source material, falls off a cliff.
There is a moment of self introspection.
Yeah.
Where even if the adaptation is poorly done, yes, it's disappointing to the fans, but it is always important. Like, the source is still there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think no better example than Avatar, The Last Airbender movie.
What movie?
Yeah, no. It is one of the worst movies.
No, let's stop this conversation. We can't
it's
talk
one
about
of the it's one of the worst movies ever put to film.
No, it is the worst. It has to be. There's not The Room. The Room with Tommy Wiseau. That is an objectively better movie.
It's funnier, at least.
It is, because you can sit there and laugh and giggle at how ridiculous it is. Avatar: The Last Airbender, your brother Aang is just it's terrible. And why is it so terrible? Go ahead. Just go off. I'm ready for it.
Well, no, the thing is, like, it will be forgotten. It already mostly is. Like, the only people that, like, bring it up are people like me that actually care about the source material, but it will disappear into the zeitgeist, and Avatar, the show, is still there. And that's what people rewatch. So that's something important to think about. Like, even though an adaptation may be bad, it doesn't take away the source material. It's disappointing in the moment and frustrating as hell. But the time will only tell. Like Amazon Rings of Power comes out. If it sucks, which I think it probably will, it will pass. It'll go. Barely anybody will watch it. Or if a lot of people do watch it, but it's not that good, so people forget about it. And in a couple years' time, they go, oh yeah, there was a show, but hey, the Peter Jackson films, like, that's what people care about.
They've transcended the books in some ways. The books have a more select community that have read them, but everyone's seen Lord of the Rings.
I've read actually some interesting frustrations on Reddit, and people just talking about Lord of the Rings where they read the books and before the movies came out, and that if you look at art done for Lord of the Rings pre-movies, it's vastly different than art made after the movies. And I'm not talking about like art directly taken from the film. Yeah. I'm talking about like the art from the Silmarillion. Yeah. Like, all the people like Alan Lee. Alan Lee is an illustrator for Lord of the Rings material. And Ted Nadsmith. Mm-hmm. You look at their art and it's not ripping things from the movies, but it's inspired and it looks like the movies.
You can't ever get that out of your head. It's difficult because it's permanently ingrained in our heads now. How can you ever not think of what Mordor looks like or the version of Mordor on film?
Great example where the films elevated the books is The Eye.
Oh, so did they not have source material for The Eye before that? Did Tolkien? Well,
it was more. It's never specifically said like the Eye of Sauron is not literally a flaming eye in the tower.
Okay.
But it is like through the the orb. I'm blanking on the name of it, but that is shown. It's Sauron's eye is on you.
Yep.
It's not literally the red flaming eye, but it's such good imagery.
Okay.
That it was kind of added. So it's not like Tolkien said there. It's not specifically there, but that was the film's version of showing a more internal thing, like just saying someone's eye is on you. In the movies they actually showed it.
Got it.
Something that is transpired, but it's interesting how that adaptation is in many ways transcended the books themselves.
Mm-hmm. And both the books and movies are perfect representations of what they can in their medium. I wanted to bring up, by the way, some typical book to film adaptations that we all know, stuff like The Wizard of Oz, The Shining, To Kill a Mockingbird, Schindler's List, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, right? These are all ones that we know are book to film adaptations, very popular. Mm-hmm. And some little known ones, Forrest Gump you mentioned earlier, we didn't, not everyone knows that was a book that became a movie. One of the really interesting ones I found was Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You know that film?
Never heard of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God! It's an '80s movie, and it kickstarted the careers of people like Sean Penn, and Nicolas Cage too. It kickstarted their careers.
I haven't seen the movie, but I do know of it. Yeah.
You've definitely heard of it and seen some pictures, and it's very much on social media. It's out there on YouTube. You'll find it everywhere. But Fast Time at Ridgemont High was based on a book, and why I found this was the most interesting story I think I found while looking into this. The screenwriter for the movie Fast Times at Ridgemont High was Cameron Crowe, and he graduated high school at the age 15. So he was, I guess, a super genius who graduated at the age of 15. Mm-hmm. And deciding that he wanted to obtain the teenage experiences he never had, Cameron Crowe, the screenwriter, enrolled in a public San Diego high school in 1981 under a fake name at the age of 22. And he started chronicling the lives and encounters of actual teenagers he befriended on the inside. And the movie's about like sexual assault. It covers a lot of deep topics. So he goes on this covert mission as a 22-year-old in high school and starts writing this book about things that he sees in people he befriends. Which, what do you think about that? A 22-year-old just plopping into high school in the 80s to do a little side project. Is that creepy or is that art?
I just want those times back where, like, you could do that. Like, you don't have an idea. Like, you just give a fake name. Like, who's gonna find out? Like, you had true anonymity. Like, you could do now. Like, they pull up your social media. Like, they have all. Like, you are never anonymous. You never can be. But you can just. I'm just gonna drop in and change my name and all right.
You want a job here? You're on To Ramble's podcast. I hate them. Why are you applying here? Like,
but 2/10 creepy, 8/10 art.
2/10 creepy, 8/10 art. Okay, so you lean on the side of art. Like,
I lean on the side of art.
And now, if it was a bad movie, creepy and bad art, he's screwed.
Well, the main thing is how close to is he befriending people, or like maybe he started actually going out with them. Like, there's can be creepy things to do, but just going there, I don't think is essential. Like, not.
Who knows what exactly he befriended people. I don't know how intricate it got, but the movie itself has some deep topics like abortion, statutory rape, and other subjects. Okay. So who knows? Who knows what happened? But as far as we know, he went on to have other successful movies like Jerry Maguire with Tom Cruise. Yeah. And that's the movie where you get some famous lines like "Show me the money," and "You had me at hello," like those famous quotes. So he went on to have a successful career, and that was a huge movie. And like I said, Sean Penn, Nicolas Cage got their careers blown up from that. And it was all from a guy creeping on high schoolers. 2/10 creepy. I'm going to say 3/10. I think it's a little more creepy. Yeah, I'm going 3/10. Go on.
Yeah, maybe it kind of made me think about the adaptations on how exactly, like, from the production side, what is a good reason for them to stay away. And I think what will actually gain the fans' support, there is a difference in an adaptation that is trying to replace what the original. when a film producer says, "Hey, this is the interpretation of Lord of the Rings, Magnificent Seven, Star Trek, whatever it is," and if it's a direct continuation, they're going to be really closely tied to it. But if it goes straight out of left field, like, "Hey, this is inspired by this medium,"
okay,
fans give it far more room. There's far more leeway. I think one of the best examples is Stargate. So Stargate started as a movie.
I haven't seen Stargate. So
I love it.
Give
it's
me
one
a
of my favorite
quick rundown of Stargate.
Stargate, U.S. military discovers a ring that actually can create wormholes to other planets.
Sounds sick. Okay, I'm in.
Yeah. Found in Egypt. Apparently, ancient Egypt actually was settled by aliens, and
classic.
Humans were slaves, and then eventually, for some reason, left.
Okay.
U.S. military gets this ring up and running. They go to this desert planet where it all looks like Egypt, like ancient Egyptians kind of thing. And they find an alien, they free the people, and they blow it up, and they go home.
Awesome.
Fun movie. Great. That's it. It goes to this one planet.
Okay.
Doesn't say anything else. It's just a movie.
And this is an adaptation?
The television show comes afterwards.
So the movie was the first.
The movie's the first.
Then they had a television show.
Then they have a television show.
Okay.
Completely new actors for the main characters.
Got it.
Takes place after the film, but doesn't really make the film canon. Has their own version of it. And they just run with it. They like start there, like the movie kind of happened like loosely.
Is it canon still, or?
Well, no, but it's... No.
No?
Not
just
really.
It's its own separate thing at that point.
It's its own separate thing, but they just run with it. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, we go to other planets. Like, it can connect to other systems, and there's a bunch of different, and they come up with their own original stuff.
When did this come out?
Oh, it's like 1990s, 80s.
Okay.
Late 80s,
I was going to ask
90s.
if it was pre or post Star Wars. So clearly post Star Wars.
Post.
Got
Post,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
But no, it goes its own direction. So people that are fans of the movie still have it, and the TV show is not trying to replace it. It's just doing its own thing. Same thing with Magnificent Seven and the Seven Samurai. People who made the Magnificent Seven were like, "Hey, I like that. We're inspired by it. Let's take that and put it in a different setting where it's clearly different." So fans like,
that's great.
You're never going to like trying to replace it. Where Ghostbusters 2016, it isn't. They didn't name it something like, Ghostbusters 3. They're not trying to. They're trying to replace original Ghostbusters. It's the same title of the movie as the original Ghostbusters.
So they're just.
It's a replacement.
They're basing it on the source material and just trying to replace it. Versus it's inspired on.
Because they don't acknowledge the original. It's like, hey, this is the new version. Here's the definitive. Don't you like this one? Because when you ask, oh, you watch Ghostbusters? They go, oh, which one? 2016 or the original?
No, the original.
Yeah, but you have to actually put a date to it instead of the name of the movie. Like, if you make it the same title.
Compared to maybe a couple months ago, watched Ghostbusters Afterlife.
It's a different name.
Which was a neat movie that based itself off of the original.
It's a continuation, but it's its own thing.
It is.
It's not trying to replace it. And so if you're
not trying... It was a cute movie. Pretty good.
But if you're not trying to replace the source material, I think fans give you a far wider berth.
I totally agree with that.
And so I think that's definitely a good way for film production to deviate from source material. If they take it beyond, like, it's an inspiration, but we're going to move past it.
Yeah.
And for fans, why it would be cool is it's a different perspective. Like, it can actually be a fun twist. Like, no matter how many times I read these books, they never change. It'd be neat to let's take Wheel of Time, but a different setting, or let's do it off of, older characters. Hey, let's follow these perspectives instead. It's new. It can be neat if it's deliberately different.
And prediction, by the way, the next major film adaptation that's going to, I think, shatter records will be Sanderson's Stormlight Archives or Mistborn. But since I've read
I think Mistborn's going first.
Either one, it's going to shatter. I think it's going to be the next big thing once it does eventually. It will become a show or a film.
Yeah.
Almost without a doubt. And
after his Kickstarter, I think it's almost bound to happen.
It's kind of inevitable. Plus, I think he was writing Mistborn's screenplay in the background. He's doing everything at once. So
he was mentioning things about it. However, he stopped talking about it. Oh. So maybe he's done. I'm not sure.
Maybe it's another step. But out of all the books you've read, that's not a film or a show yet. What do you want adapted other than Brandon Sanderson? Because that's the easy answer. But is there something you really want to see on screen that hasn't had enough credit yet, that doesn't get the recognition it deserves? I know you've got some good ones over on my side over here.
Yeah, honestly, some of the movies would be like, I think Hyperion, but The Expanse, Leviathan Wakes is already a television show. It's a good one. Haven't seen all the way through, but
what about that series right there, the Lucanus trilogy? Is that what it's called?
It'd be neat. I'm not sure how well it would be adapted to film or television, but
it does really well as books.
Yeah, really well as books. I'm not sure how well it would do there. Rage of Dragons should really be a film. Oh, it hits all the boxes. It's an entirely African class, so entirely black cast. I don't want to see one single white motherfucker in here. Well, not one.
What about
no pasty skin people? None, because the book is African culture, and it is inspired by African mythology, and it is awesome and badass, and the characters are great. It would be a perfect film because it has a neat beginning, middle, end. I think so. I wouldn't really want a television show for it.
You'd want a movie.
I want a movie.
Okay.
And I don't know why
it has a sick name, so that could very easily be advertised.
Oh, you get the people who did the dragons from HBO to come in and use the dragons for the movie.
From Game of Thrones.
It'd be sweet.
Yeah. What do you? Speaking of Game of Thrones, what do you think are some of the worst book to film, book to movie adaptations ever? What comes to mind? Avatar: The Last Airbender, out of the way. That's the worst ever.
Sure.
Sorry, that's show to.
It's movie, a show to movie.
So book to movie, book to show. What do you think are some of the worst? I'll start you off with one. Percy Jackson.
Sure, that's definitely one of them.
My childhood was filled with Percy Jackson. I know you've read them. Obviously.
Yeah, I read them.
You enjoy them, but
sure,
you're not infatuated with them, I'd say.
I read them once when I was in middle school.
Okay. I love them. They're great. I don't talk about them enough, but it's a great book series, and the films do not do them justice whatsoever. And what's really shocking about that is the director of Percy Jackson was the same director as Harry Potter.
Ooh.
So how do you flub that?
The problem with thinking about like the bad adaptations is they do disappear. They disappear from your mind. Like, I don't remember the bad ones.
Okay. Yeah, that's true. I had to look up some bad ones and re-jog my memory. And
there's so much. A nice thing about history is when you look back, you really only remember the good stuff.
Yeah. Or we have very selective, positive seeking memories.
Yeah, I mean...
That's why nostalgia is so powerful. You know that?
Yeah.
Nostalgia is such a powerful emotion because we look back at our lives, at high school, at middle school, and we think so strongly of all the good things that happened, so we get that dopamine rush rather than, not everything was that hunky-dory.
Well, it kind of makes me... It makes me think about, when you talk about these adaptations, when do you think art becomes content? Because I'll give a specific example. Marvel. There's a point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe where I think it stopped becoming art and it became content. Because you look at Iron Man, and it has this tonal difference that it doesn't feel like any of the other Marvel movies. It is its own thing. It's unique. It was the first. And after
Hulk was the first. Take that back.
Fine. No one remembers that movie.
No one does.
But you start looking further, and all the Marvel movies now feel the same. Even the television, they all have this formulaic corporate feel to it, where it is content. There's so much you can't watch it all.
So, I see what you're saying. I still love Spider-Man: No Way Home.
There's always some good ones in there, but
what Marvel does, they're just putting out a ton of movies, and they have a formula. and the formula clearly works if they're making boatloads of money at the box office. And I will say, as much they do have misses, they have a lot of misses there. Like Eternals just came out, wasn't great. They've had a Hulk, Thor: Dark World. There's plenty you can name that are just worse than B tier movies. But then they'll pop up with a Guardians of the Galaxy, a Spider-Man: No Way Home, an Avengers: Infinity War, Endgame, which they do have these very formulaic ways of making them. Which, sure, at that point, maybe it's just more of a, it's content producing. They've got these shows coming out with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And
every single one of the shows, to me, like, whether I liked it or disliked it, felt far more of, like, content. Like, this didn't need to be here. You're just trying to pump something out. Like, just overly milking the teat of the cow. Like, it's that meme of, like, the cow that's just dehydrated and the farmer's just trying to go, like, oh, what about the Loki who disappeared in that one scene in event? Let's see where he goes. Like, enjoyable for time, but like,
I enjoyed Loki quite a bit. I did not enjoy Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, like, oh, from beginning to end, like, at the end of Endgame, Falcon gets the shield and becomes the new Captain America. End of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he gets the shield again and becomes the new Captain America.
Again. It wasn't needed. It was content at that point.
Where WandaVision started kind of interesting premise, but by the end, you're just like, ugh, it's more just content. It's something to watch.
Grievances. I go into Marvel, though. It's very popcorn-like. Like, if you go to watch a movie, you're going to watch it. It's a fun little... I'm not going into a Marvel movie looking for a Godfather. I'm not looking for a masterpiece of...
You can enjoy content, but it's just sometimes you think, like, kind of want more. I would rather...
A Marvel movie, I don't think will ever be Oscar-worthy in that sense.
Yeah,
because
probably right.
They're popcorn.
To be fair, I don't really respect Oscar nomination in general now.
But regardless, Marvel movies, I don't think they'll be that artful in that, you're not going to look back and go, this was defining for these kind of films. This was no, you're not going to get that. You're going to get, I think, enjoyable movies produced that you can sit back and have fun with.
I think the identifiers of when a show becomes, whatever kind of movie or television show becomes content and not art, is when they start heavily relying on surface level parts of the film.
Yeah.
And that comes from, like, the actor. So heavily reliance on, like, hey, look, it's this big actor. Look at them do things. And then the action. Action's pretty neat, but if it's just visually neat and not, like, thematically, or, like, you don't feel something, like, where I feel worried for the character, or this is significant for the, like, it's cathartic action. Like, if it's just action for action's sake and it just looks neat, which is fun, it's enjoyable, but you combine that with it's just the actor, the action, the music, and then the grandeur. It's big for big's sake. Like, it's bigger and better than ever, where when you see a film that's just heavily reliant on that, I think that's when I start finding that this is just corporate content.
I'm surprised you brought up Marvel first, because when I think of something that's absolutely just become content and despisable content, this is going to be a little controversial. I mean, I think people will agree with this, but Star Wars.
Completely agree.
I know you'll agree with this, but it's gotten so bad. The movies recently have gotten so bad. With the exception of, I did enjoy Rogue One. I think it's an enjoyable, above passable movie.
But you want to... What I just said so applies to Rogue One, where beginning and ending, it is unnecessary.
Sure, but at least it's a good film, though. I think it's a good film. But with that aside, Han Solo, the complete new trilogy, and even going back to the I'm talking only movies, like set Clone Wars, set Mandalorian aside.
Prequels, I wouldn't say is that kind of... It's not good, but it's not content like just cranking out from the machine. That's still George Lucas trying something new.
Correct.
It's not good,
No.
But
they're not great movies, but it's not you're just trying to pump up content for box office success.
yeah,
Agreed.
no, it's George Lucas trying something
Yes.
that he wanted to do.
Whereas the
that's
new
different.
trilogy and these, the Han Solo story and Boba Fett we didn't see, but I think that's just
I've heard it's not. I
heard
watched
the same.
I watched the episode with the Mandalorian in it.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah,
Mandalorian's a good show.
it's fun, but
and
also
are you gonna? Should we watch Obi-Wan? The Kenobi. What's it called? Kenobi coming out. Is the show just called Kenobi?
I think maybe Obi-Wan.
I think we should give it a shot, but I think Star Wars it's gotten so frustrating to where
it just leaves a poor taste in my mouth.
It's so corporatized now that it's hard to sit there and know you're walking into like you're not going to get your Star Wars from the 70s, 80s ever again. But
no,
you do have your good shows like Clone Wars, and you do have your good shows like Mandalorian. But I'm talking just movies. I hate the new trilogy with such a passion.
It is. That's a hard thing to define, like corporatized, because like you know it when you feel it.
Yep.
But to sit down and put a definition on there is hard. I think maybe it's when you can tell that a decision was made in a movie purely because it worked last time. Like remember that. Like it's all the member berries kind of thing. Of when you see scenes in a movie that is clearly like, hey, this happened before. Remember that? And it's like a direct scene cut off, or a character's like arc is the same as the previous one because the previous one worked. So I think a lot of that corporate feel is when it's not new.
Yeah, when it's not new, that does happen. And I do want to end on a good note. You tried to trash Marvel a little bit over there. I want to end it on the note of, as much as it is formulaic, there's a lot of content. I think it produces a lot of great content. Like when I watch Thor Ragnarok, and you see Hulk jump out of the ship every single time and land and just splatter on the ground. That I'll laugh every time. I love some of the humor just really hits. And when you walk in, not expecting to critique the movie, just walk in and just sit back and watch a good Marvel movie.
It's certainly fun.
It's so fun.
For me, I'm kind of just tired of Marvel humor. Like Marvel's humor throughout every single movie is the exact same.
It's fair critique. That's a fair critique.
Just the constant undercutting of serious moments for like deadpan humor of like, I'm just tired. I'm just really tired of it.
They cut the emotional moments with humor,
and
a lot.
It's every time. I think maybe why I liked Far From Home was they didn't do that to Aunt May. They didn't undercut it with a joke.
No,
they let it sit.
It was meaningful. It was very meaningful.
The second Spider-Man movie after Endgame, Tony dies and all that, and immediately right in Spider-Man's like, oh, I want to get the girl, and like it's this weird undercutting of like this whole tragedy happened and you guys don't care.
I get you.
So
hey,
I wanted to. You were trying to be hopeful, and I wanted to bring it down. And
I'm gonna end it on a positive note again.
Fair enough.
Lord of the Rings. We'll end it there. All right, it's been a good one.
All right, see y'all later. Please leave a comment, subscribe, go to our YouTube page,
check all that out.
Check all those things out.
We're also on Spotify and Apple. Check that out. But just watch the YouTube.
Why not?
But just watch us. Why? I mean, if you're in a car,
tell us what you think down below, and tell us what we should talk about next.
All right. Bye, everybody.